All right, it looks like we have everyone here. Let's go again ahead and get started with our webinar. The topic here today is your next ERP, Smarter Operations, start with a smarter system. So we're really going to give you an overview of kind of first a quick reintroduction to SVA, who we are and how we help contribute to your digital transformation in multiple different ways. I'll go into the use case, right? Why move systems? Why move them now? Why it's becoming increasingly more critical that we move to a new ERP. And then we'll get into a bit of the value of modernization. So what does it do for you? What does it do for your business? And really starting to understand a bit of the investment and the ROI or return on investment that you can expect to get from a new system. Then we'll kind of transition into a little bit of a story of why we chose Acumatica. So obviously, SVA has represented Microsoft SL and GP for many years. 15 years ago, we signed on with Acumatica and honestly haven't looked back. We'll bring you into our thought process of why we chose Acumatica over other products. But we'll really spend most of our time today in the demonstration. So I'll kick us off with a review of the Acumatica UI, what that user experience looks like, general introduction to access to data, which we know is important, some personalization as well, and in general, some themes of fewer clicks to get the information that you're looking for. I'll also do a quick overview of the financial structure and a few transactions, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague Kaylee, who's going to show us some AI and automation in terms of AP, and then some quick receivables as well. Finally, we'll end with a call to action. So if you liked what you saw here today, if you're interested in learning more, I have my email address, I have Kaylee's email address. We invite you to connect with us and we can have a deeper call to learn more. All right. So first off, quick introduction to SVA. So I'm Andrea Hayes, principal here at SVA. I've been with the company about 9 years, been working on Acumatica 8 of those years. At SVA, holistically, we have different teams, but our common thread is that we are really business people that use technology to solve business problems, always striving to serve people better. So what we really like to do is think about the person and what their business use case is and distill that, deconstruct that away from what they're doing today and help understand how technology aligned with process and people can help provide a better outcome. At SVA, we're comprised of 4 different teams. Our business application team implements Acumatica ERP. That includes distribution, manufacturing, retail, as well as professional services and core finance. We are also Shopify and BigCommerce preferred partners as well. And Acumatica has native integrations to Shopify and BigCommerce. We have a separate data visualizations and analytics team, and what they do is some really powerful dashboards. Acumatica has a nice integration with Power BI, and I'll show you what that looks like today in a dashboard that team built out. So if you're looking to integrate data across multiple systems, look at historical views and really have robust dashboards and visibility to your business, we really partner with that team, our data team, to make that come to life. Next, we have our change and program management team. So for larger ERP implementations, it can be really helpful to have a team that is really focused on adoption, things like communication plan, end user training, understanding any resistance that's going on with a new system, because it is a big change and we certainly recognize that. It has a big emotional component. So we have a dedicated team that really focuses on helping to bring those people along. We have a separate early life sciences team that focuses on small life sciences companies that are pre-commercial, so not yet approved by the FDA. They really help them commercialize their product. When we focus just on that top right, our business applications team, who do we serve? We serve lots of different clients around financials, some regulated industries like FDA regulated, HIPAA compliant, pharma compliant, as well as B2B distribution and manufacturing. We have an in-house development team, all based actually in Wisconsin, so not overseas, and they can build complex integrations and also customizations if they're needed. We also do an enterprise ETL, which is extract, transformation, and load. So if you have lots of data in your current ERP and there's a big transformation to bring it over into your new ERP, we have an enterprise team where we partner with our data team to help make that happen. And what that means for your purposes is you don't have to do that transformation in Excel. We brought a lot of our customers over from SL and GP. So at this point, we have about a 20-year relationship, average relationship with our customer base. Over the years, over the 33 years, over 700 successful ERP implementations. And at this point, about 100 customers successfully on Acumatica. We'll get into the Acumatica in the next slide, but really want to start with our Net Promoter Score. So the Net Promoter Score is interesting. It's the likelihood that a user is to recommend for or against a product. So it's on a range of positive 100 to negative 100. Acumatica's Net Promoter Score is plus 44, which is very high in the industry. Currently, GP is in the negatives, for example. All right, so let's get into a little bit why the use case of why now is an important time to move. I know some of these products aren't formally deprecated for a few years, but why we're seeing an increasingly importance to move. The big one is the danger of on-prem ERP. So what does that mean? So if you're hosting your ERP on-premise, you are really a very easy target for ransomware and phishing attacks. And we've seen that very closely with our clients, especially in the last few months. And it is not a fun or an easy process to go through. You're risking sensitive data exposed to the dark web, some reputational damage. So under the surface, right, you might be operating an on-premise ERP. What does that look like in terms of what your business might see? You might see a ransomware attack, right? You might see some financial loss. Under the hood as well, we see a lot of our customers that are on these older products with a lot of manual entry. It can be hard to optimize. Things like AP bills have to be sometimes printed, signed for approval. Maybe you're signing checks. Maybe you have multiple systems or multiple third-party add-ons that mean that you have to integrate lots of systems together, and that can cause some errors. So then what we see there is obviously lots of manual data entry is prone to error. It's hard to have one version of the truth when you have different systems holding different sets of data. Then what you tend to have is lots of folks with different Excel files that say different things and have different data in them. And that can lead to, it's really hard to make decisions in real time. So this is just a bit of what we're seeing, and certainly the biggest motivator in a lot of systems is really that on-prem concern and the risk there of a hack or a data breach. All right. Wanted to shed a few metrics on the importance of modernizing that in ERP. So what does it mean for you and your business? Well, 78% of organizations found improved productivity. And what that can look like is 50 to 60% reduction in close time. So whereas it took you maybe 2 or 3 weeks to close the month before, now it takes a few days, right? It's a lot easier. So you can expect lots of productivity. And what that means is hopefully some extra time for some key folks that they can use it to then grow the business and invest back into it. We talked about data breaches as well. On-prem systems have a 33% versus 5% security incidents versus that 5% in the cloud. So really, really decrease in risk there when you start to move from an on-prem ERP or system to in the cloud. This next one is the average ROI or return on investment for an ERP project is 52%. So meaning that for every dollar you invest, there's an average return of $1.52. So that helps to kind of shed some light on the things that you can expect from the bottom line, the things that you can expect from your everyday back office and front of house operations as well. And then just thinking about that risk in terms of a ransomware attack as well. All right, so let's kind of get into, we learned a little bit about why now in terms of ERP, what the value is. Let's get into why we chose Acumatica as a solution to represent. First off, it is the number one tier 2 cloud system that's born in the century. So it's not an old code base that was built in 2008. And what we like about it is that they invest a lot of their expenditures back into the product. So you'll see and hear fewer commercials for Acumatica, but in large part, that's because they're really putting their investment into the product. And so it's a very feature-rich system. These G2 ratings that you see on the screen here, these are rated by users of the product, not industry analysts. And so what you see are very obviously recent ratings. Best relationship mid-market. What does that mean? It means that Acumatica is a really great manufacturer to work with. They won't, hike prices up. They are very reasonable in how they promote the product, how they come across. They're negotiating and they're contracting as well. Best established ROI in mid-market ERP. A leader in winter 2025, highest user adoption as well, best usability. So lots of ratings there in terms of ease of use, easier to work with, really great user adoption. User adoption is obviously critical if you're going to yield really positive results in terms of reducing waste and increasing value in the back end of the business. The other things we like, the licensing model is really consumption based. So it's not based on named users. So you can invite lots of folks into the system. You don't have to budget for additional users a year from now, for example. Rather, it's based on commercial transaction volume, and that starts to keep those costs relatively low. We like how accessible it is. So I fly a lot and I can easily access Acumatica on the airplane. So as long as I have access to the internet, I have access to Acumatica. It also comes with a mobile app as well. So I can do things like approve an expense claim on my mobile phone. I can approve a bill on my phone as well. I can see lots of metrics and even log time on the mobile app. We like how flexible it is. So you can choose when you upgrade. You're not forced into an upgrade schedule. We also like, obviously, that robust roadmap in terms of lots of new features with every new release. And we also like that for our regulated industries like HIPAA or FDA or government, you can host it on AWS via SaaS, and that comes with all that geo redundancy, those automated backups, a lot of that security that keeps those ransomware attacks, very, very low. But if you need to, you can also privately host as well. So if you have, if you're HIPAA compliant, there's an option to privately host. All right, we'll get into the usability a bit when you see the software as well as the functionality, but what we really like is how easy it is to personalize access to that data and then fewer clicks. Just a quick overview of the areas that Acumatica plays in really well is manufacturing, so discrete and process manufacturing. Professional services, so here at SVA, we actually use Acumatica to run our business. The distribution editions, that includes everything from pick, pack, and ship to receiving to inventory management and order management. And then that retail edition that we mentioned a bit earlier in our partnership with Shopify and BigCommerce, but that allows that integration of sales orders, for example, from your website into Acumatica for you to then fulfill and then send back out without hitting a button. All right. So let's get a bit into the product now. Go. So Acumatica is browser based, it's browser agnostic. So I'm on Edge, but you could certainly be on Chrome or any other browser. Acumatica has multi-tenants. And so what you see here are different environments that we can log into and have a completely different set of data, different set of user permissions. You can have multiple production tenants or multiple production environments. You also, with your license, get unlimited test environments. So you don't have to pay for a separate sandbox if you don't want to. Rather, you can just leverage the native Acumatica test environments, and we can work with you to create a new tenant, a new test environment whenever you'd like, so that you can test things out without disrupting your production flow. When I log in, I'm going to log in with my credentials. I have kind of unlimited access in Acumatica, but Acumatica has built-in security roles. So things like controller, AP clerk, AR clerk. I'm logged in as an administrator. And so my role is pretty unrestricted, but we can leverage Acumatica's native roles to restrict and prune what people can see. Probably the first thing that you'll notice is obviously my controller dashboard. All of this is native, it's just built in. I can modify this pretty easily as well. Each of these are just little widgets that I can change. And I've got some graphs here that you can see. I've got a link here that I'll click to Power BI. This is just showing you a bit of that Power BI integration and some of what our data team has built. And really, this is just pulling data from Acumatica and just presenting it differently, right? So it's a sales analysis dashboard. I can see my total gross profit by year and month. Maybe I want to see it by customer, or maybe I want to see it by item. So lots of information here that we can display if you prefer to show it in a Power BI like dashboard. Okay. The theme kind of in access to data and fewer clicks. is that this dashboard is live. And so if I wanted to see 1.3 million in my total AP, I know my demo site is probably my payables are not so good in my demo site here, but when I click on that KPI, what I see is a vendor summary. This view is called a generic inquiry. It's really a list view of what comprised that number. And the nice thing about this type of screen is this table view is available across the system, and it's really the basis or foundation for a lot of the automation that exists within Acumatica. It's also an area that I can really personalize. So I have other people obviously in my site as well. So I can, I can move things around. Maybe I want the date over here, and other people in the system won't see my changes, right? Maybe I want to just have a filter, a period start and period end. I can do that pretty easily. Maybe I want to do year start and year end. And that dynamic filter is nice because then when the year changes or the month changes, I don't have to update that filter. And then I can save that again if I wanted to, and then I would just see that view. I'm going to go back to my all records and just clear that quick. I can also filter things pretty well. So if I wanted to see my this only for active, I can filter that and just see that my vendor summary for active. So just a way to kind of play with the information. If there's views in here or columns that I wanted to see or perhaps didn't want to see, I can just take those out, right? And I wouldn't see them anymore. The other nice thing is lots of folks like to do analysis in Excel. So all of these views in the generic inquiry can be exported to Excel. Once you're in Excel, you can actually log into Acumatica and have it refresh your data. So you can build lots of conditional formatting formulas in Excel and continually just refresh that data from Excel if that's where you prefer to do your analysis. All right. Just X out of here. The other nice thing to just kind of show is that this little icon here is my breadcrumbs. So it will show me a history of everything that I've been on recently, which can be helpful. If I just look at my menu here, my finance menu, we'll get into that in a minute. I have these little stars. What that means is those are my favorites, and those would show up on my favorites menu. I can even manage and curate my menu here, where if I didn't want to see something in my quick menu, I could just unclick that box and I wouldn't see it anymore. Again, all those changes are specific to me. The other nice thing about Acumatica's UI and just general navigation is the search button here. So if I wanted to find something like, I wasn't sure where the allocations page was and I wanted to find that, I can find that right here in the menu item. It'll just take me right to that page. The other way Acumatica is really powerful is in its help documentation. So if I wasn't quite sure how to set up an allocation, I can hit that help documentation, and I can actually go over here and see, okay, here's the allocation rules. How do I do this, right? And it'll like walk me through a learning exercise for allocations. The other nice thing when we're in the help documentation is if I go back to the home, Acumatica has a native wiki that comes with the product, so no additional cost, where you can create your own boxes right here, and you can have work instruction that's specific to your business as well. So that can be really helpful as a way to preserve work instruction and make sure folks, especially if they're new, have a common instruction sheet to go off of. All right, the two other areas in our help or search menu are the transactions and profiles and the files. So if I get a call from someone and I don't know who that came from, I can type it in here and it will find that for me. So it'll search the fields in records and transactions and say, hey, the person that called you was actually Carla Smith. Here's her number right here. This is how it knew that this was related to that contact. And it'll tell me the business account that she's from, any activities that I have with her. So it's a really helpful way to kind of find information pretty quickly. The other thing that the search does is files. So, rather than printing out AP bills, for example, you can attach a file to any record, like a vendor record. Maybe you want to save their 1099 or W-2, or you can link a file to a transaction or transaction line, and then search by those files. So I have a file that's a PDF. It's a bill, and it's related, and it tells me exactly what documents it's related to as well. All right, so now that we've had a bit of a round trip of the UI and the navigation, I'm going to first introduce you to the financial structure, show you a bit of financial reports, and then hand it over to Kaylee to show you a little bit of AP and AR. So the first part of our financial structure is that we have different entities here. So right now I'm an Atlas Holding Company. What this does is it allows me to have transactions for different companies and different entities in the same environment and not separate databases, which can make it a little bit easier so that I can go in and between, if I wanted to see my power energy company, for example. Now there's a nice visual cue to show me that I'm in a different company. And I can go ahead and make transactions in that company if I have the proper rights, or I can make them in the Atlas Holding Company. So the first one is that legal entity that is the first part of our financial structure. The next one is our chart of accounts. So if I go to my finance menu here, and I just go to my chart of accounts, Acumatica has a natural chart of accounts. So what you don't have to do is duplicate different accounts for things like department or for different dimensions. Rather, Acumatica has a chart of account and then a sub account, which we'll get into next. The nice thing about this chart of accounts is that it has an account class here on the left, which is optional. And what it does is it allows you to tag or group certain accounts by the account class. And then when you make a financial report, you call that account class and it will bring in all those transactions by the accounts that are listed within that class. So that can be a nice way to help maintain those financial reports pretty easily by just leveraging that class feature. Here I have a 5-digit account structure, but I could certainly have 6 or 9. All of that is configurable in the system. And then once you are done, or deprecating an account, you can just deactivate that account as well. All right, the last part of our financial structure is what we call our segmented keys. And this is really that dimensionality. This is that sub account. So what I'm showing you now is my sub account has 3 parts to it. I have a location, I have a department, and I have a project. What that means is I can see a P&L by location, for example. And if I wanted to see what that looks like, I can say view segment. And now you can see that for locations, I have these multiple locations. So what this means is that every transaction line is coded to that financial structure that we went through. So the entity that you saw across the top, our Atlas Holding Company, the account, that natural account, and then also each of these 3 segmented values. And that lets us see things like a P&L and financial statements by those dimensions. So my first dimension here is my location. The next dimension I have here is my department. And then the third one, just as an example, was project. Acumatica also has a project accounting feature as well. So it depends on the types of things that you wanted to do in terms of budgeting and planning for projects that would steer us in either the GL side or the accounting side, the project accounting side. So what does this mean? What does this look like? When I go to finance and let's just look at a P&L, I'm going to run this report. This is one of the financial reports that are just built into Acumatica. What you see here is that everything in blue is a hyperlink, which means I can drill down into it. I'm going to first kind of show you this tree view, and this is called a unit set. And the unit set's really powerful because what it does is in this unit set in particular, I'm taking that second segment sub-account, which was department, and I code each transaction line to, general if it doesn't apply, or corporate finance, for example, or quality. I've never coded to back office or commercialization, but what the unit set lets me do is basically do a virtual hierarchy and a grouping mechanism whereby corporate admin and finance are grouped under back office operations. So it's a nice way that I can see that data different than, I can group my departments together and perhaps see it by division, rather than department. So again, we can take those segmented values and those sub-account segments, and that's how we can view our financial reports like we're doing here. I can also do that for entities as well. So if I wanted to do just the Atlas Holding Company, we could certainly do that using that unit set feature. We mentioned a little bit about drill down as well. So I'll just kind of show you what this looks like. If I wanted to see where that services and utilities bill came from, I click on that blue hyperlink. It takes me to these general ledger details page. And if I really am not understanding maybe where I want to drill into where that amount came from, I can drill in further. And now it'll start to show me the transactions that comprise that value. So what I can see here is it hit my general ledger, and Acumatica tags any transaction that originated in a different subledger with the module. So AP means it originated from the AP module. Here's the batch number for that GL, and here's the reference number. So if I click on that reference number, now I can actually start to see that AP bill that comprised that number there. And we mentioned some attachments. If I go up here on the top right, I have an attachment to this, and now I can actually see that bill that came in from Alta Ace in that utility bill. All right. Okay, so we've gone through a bit of the financial structure. Kind of helps it come together if we just create a quick journal entry so you can see what this looks like. So here's my journal transaction. It will default to whatever branch that I'm on. So Atlas Holding Company defaults to my actual ledger. Acumatica also has other types of ledgers that if you wanted to, you could maintain things like a budget ledger, a statistical ledger, tax ledger. It will default to the branch that I'm in, and if I have access to other branches, I can certainly code to those branches. But at the line level, here we start to kind of see that entity or financial structure come into play. So as soon as I start typing, Acumatica will show me any value that meets that criteria. So if I just go to sales expense, just as an example, and then I go to my sub account, now you can start to see that segmented keys or values come into play here. So maybe this transaction line doesn't apply really to location. Maybe it does. If it doesn't, I can just code it to my default value. Otherwise, I can code it to the value of the location that it would be from. So now I can code it to, let's say, commercial, and then to a project, right? Default project. So just kind of showing you how each line kind of comes together for that financial structure. Just really quick in terms of the ways that we can create journal entries pretty easily, a quick overview, and then I'll do a round trip of the banking and hand it over to Kaylee. This allows you to load records from a file. So what that means is that you can get a export of your payroll, for example. You can take Excel or a CSV, load it from there, and create the lines in your journal batch. In another example, I'll just create a new one here. If you have a transaction that you create pretty often, but maybe you can't automate it in terms of a recurring entry because you have to change the values every month, you can create that as a template. And when I click on that template, it will load it in those lines. And then I can change those lines and then release it if and when I need to. Quick overview of the other components of the financial module. We mentioned allocations, so you can automate allocations perhaps by headcount or floor space, for example, in Acumatica. You can also set up recurring transactions where if it's the same amount every single month, for example, you can have that kind of set it and forget it and have it create those transactions every month. Acumatica also has a budgeting tool, so that same financial structure, the entity, the account, and the sub-account, it is the way that you can create budgets. So it also uses the budget ledger. You can create as many ledgers as you'd like for budgeting and save those transactions in a budget ledger and then view budget to actuals. All right. Quick overview of banking here. And so Acumatica has multiple payment methods. So, we get questions of, can I still pay via check? Yes, you can. These are just a few that I have set up. You can pay via check, you can pay via ACH, and what Acumatica does is it creates that export file for the bank. And then if you'd like to, we can also integrate with the bank if you'd like to do that as well. We also accept payment from credit cards, and Kaylee will show you some of that in the click to pay demo here shortly. If you wanted also to automate some of the bank reconciliation, which can be a pain, Acumatica also has a bank feeds feature. So what this feature does is it integrates with bank aggregators like IMX and Plaid. And what it does is it will connect you to those bank institutions. You'll log in over 10,000 different banks across the US and Canada. You log into your account from here, and what it will do is it will bring in transactions from the bank for you then to go ahead and reconcile. So this is kind of that first step. I'm obviously not going to log into a bank right now, but what it would do is import all those files, and then we go to process transactions, and you could send this to run on a schedule. So what this would do is if I want to reconcile my cash account, it will bring in all the transactions. Then on the left side here in a second, it will show me all the transactions that came in from my bank. And on the right side, it will show me all the transactions that it matches with it in Acumatica. And this is where we start to get into a bit of the AI features within the tool, and that I can first connect to my bank, automate those bank transactions to come over, have this run on a schedule. And then the auto matching features will auto match it. And then what it doesn't find, I can then, get up and then deal with those changes. So any gaps that it doesn't find, it's really just deal by exception instead of having to go through each one line at a time. All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to Kaylee. I'll stop sharing and she'll get into the AP side and the AR side. And we'll start with kind of an overview of an AP bill. And again, some AI features here in creating that bill from a PDF.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Andrea. So as I kind of get into the accounts payable side, I just have a different dashboard view separate from the one that Andrea had originally shown. So this could be the type of dashboard view, for example, that an AP clerk would have within the organization. And again, all of these different widgets are configurable. If I wanted to drill down into just that open bills to pay, for example, I could do so. And maybe this is just a starting point as an AP clerk throughout the day. But I'll go ahead and get into the accounts payable module. So a couple of different things here. One, my bills and adjustments screen is really where I could go in and create the AP bills. So we'll show you what that looks like. We could create those bills manually, probably how you guys are doing that today. But I'll also highlight just how we could start to automate that process a little bit and what a lot of customers, when leveraging a modern solution like Acumatica, are starting to get into as well. So I'll start more on that automated workflow. And so what I can do is go into this incoming documents screen. And really, this is where Acumatica starts to leverage some of those AI features. So what this tool will allow and what we'll walk through is I may have an AP bill sent to me from a vendor. So I can go ahead, either drag and drop directly into this screen, which is what I'll do. We can also have dedicated email accounts set up. So if you had, accounts payable, for example, at company.com set up where all of your vendors will send their bills to, that can automatically connect to this as well. And so as you get those emails in, there's a PDF attachment, those could automatically drop into this queue. So both options available. But essentially what I'll do is I'll go ahead and drag and drop just an AP bill that I got from a vendor. And if I go ahead and click recognize, this is where it's going to recognize using OCR technology to kind of read that document for me, and it's going to put it into that entry screen. So it kind of bypasses that initial manual entry of the AP bill, but rather does some of that work for me. So it went ahead and recognized, and if I drill down into it, this will start to show what that invoice looks like. So on the far right-hand side here, I have that invoice that was sent to me, in this case from my Ulta Ace vendor, and then different line items, in this example for advertising costs and marketing services. So as we can see, here's the document on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, this is how it's matching it within the system. So it was able to find that vendor in my system. If I needed to create that new vendor, I could do so through this screen as well. And then based on the vendor it found within Acumatica, it's populating in some of their default information as well. I do have the ability to override if needed. It's matching things like the date, that vendor reference number from that invoice as well. And then it's also pulling in those specific line items with the quantities, in this case, these hours, the descriptions, and the pricing as well. So as you can see, it's kind of pulling in that information for me, bypassing the need for me to enter that in manually. From there, I can go ahead and save and continue. And what this will pop open is the AP bill entry screen. So I very well could have created a new AP bill, found that vendor, and again, manually entered this in. But what that OCR technology will allow is for kind of the bypassing of it. So here's my AP bill. I'll also note the files and attachments that Andrea pointed out, again, that exist throughout the system. Through this process, it's automatically attaching that file to the AP bill as well. I'll go ahead and remove this hold. And then at this point, this is where we could start to leverage Acumatica's native approval maps. So this is where, as we mentioned in the beginning, this might also be a manual process where you have a AP bill that's due to a vendor. You may need to get that approved before you can kind of proceed. That may be something that you're manually walking it over to the approver's desk today for signature, for example. Within Acumatica, we can kind of automate that process. So we can have what's called approval maps set up in the system, and those can be rule-based. So maybe, any AP bill above $10,000, for example, needs to get approved by the accounting, but then also an executive. So you can have different rules set up. Maybe specific vendors require approvals. You can have one approver or multiple as well. So all of that is kind of directly within the system. And available to automate that process. And then again, oftentimes we'll see people leverage something like the Acumatica mobile app or the notifications or dashboards to then go in and approve that as well. So in this case, I don't have that approval on here, so I can go ahead and release it. Otherwise, it would need to be approved before we're able to go ahead and release it as well. All right, so now I could go ahead and pay. I could kind of pay one for one. The more kind of frequent use case that we'll see is you'd probably pay these at a cadence and probably pay multiple vendors at once. And so if I want to do it kind of that way, I can go into what's called a processing screen in Acumatica. And so I could manually kind of select all of these documents that need to be paid and process those. Also, anywhere you see this kind of schedules icon, this is where we could start to automate that process as well. So maybe as you start working within Acumatica, you may want someone taking a look at these and processing those payments kind of manually. As we get more comfortable with the system, however, we could automate this. So maybe on a monthly basis, we just want anything that's open for the checks that are due to go ahead and run this process. So it's going to automatically create those payments for us rather than having to go in and kind of mass process those. So a lot of different automation features throughout the system, not just in the accounts payable module, but kind of across all the modules as well. So here I could mass select these and process the payment. Andrea also mentioned the payment methods. So in this case, Ulta Ace, that vendor who came in, their preferred payment method is a check. ACH is available as well. So a lot of times we're seeing people veer a little bit more towards the ACH versus the printed checks. But again, both of those are available. So I'll go ahead, I'll select that most recent bill that came in, and we'll just pay that for now. So I can go ahead and process this. And since this was that check payment method, it's now going to prompt me to print the check. So again, if it was the ACH, instead of prompting me to print, it would prompt me to create that NACHA file as an export that would then get exported to the bank. But in this case, I'll go ahead and print this check. And we can see that check that's printed here. It went ahead and printed the check. And then my next action that we can see is the release function. So now I can go ahead and release that check. All right, so now it's been processed. If I go back into my payables, I can drill back down into my bills and adjustments screen. And at the very top there, I'll see the one that was initially created. I can drill down into that reference. And then we'll see the status there has changed to closed since it's fully paid. And then I do have the link to that payment as well directly within that bill that I could, again, drill down into and see when it was paid and what was the payment method as well. All right. Next, we'll kind of veer into just an overview highlight of some of the accounts receivable functionality. And again, a lot of out-of-the-box dashboards, all configurable, but separate from an AP clerk, for example. This may be the start of a dashboard that an AR clerk could see. So again, a lot more on the AR side. They can start to see, which customers are overdue. Do we have any customers on credit hold? All of those types of things as well. So different types of views for different personnel within the organization. All right, so we'll go ahead and create a new invoice to start. We'll keep it pretty high level and simple, and then we'll show you guys the click to pay feature that a lot of our customers are starting to leverage as well on the customer side. So we'll create a new invoice for my Clark Contractors customer. We'll see a lot of different information populating from that customer record. So you can have different types of terms set up within Acumatica per customer. And then those will be the default depending on what you have set up on the customer record. As we kind of populate in the transactions associated with that customer, we can manage things like customer prepayments, all of those types of things as well, as we get a little bit more granular in some of those use cases. For now, I'll go ahead and just create a simple invoice. Let's assume we're invoicing them for some advertising services. And so now we'll go ahead and save that. Again, we can have multiple different lines. Acumatica does have a full sales order module as well. So we could have had sales orders that are then creating this invoice kind of ahead of that step. In this case, we're just assuming we're creating kind of bare AR invoices in this case as well. But that is a functionality that does exist and is pretty deep on that side through kind of that distribution manufacturing space as well. But here's my invoice. I can go ahead, email this out directly through the system. So this could be scheduled as well or automated. But as I went ahead and emailed out that invoice, you can see Acumatica is automatically handling that for me. This is what's called an email template within Acumatica. So these are configurable as well, but then it's automatically attaching that file, and this is what gets sent out to that customer. These are all configurable, so those would be personalized to you guys as well. But Acumatica does handle kind of that full automation of the email communication to customers. All right, so I went ahead and released that, and then quickly we'll go ahead and pay this as well. But here is where the specific payment link functionality exists. So I could go ahead, select my processing center. In this case, it would be for the Acumatica payments is what we're leveraging for the payment links. If I go ahead and save this quickly, go back here. And what this will allow is the click to pay functionality. So here is one that had sent that out already. We can automate that. So anytime we release an invoice, for example, it's automatically creating the payment link. Here's that payment link. If I go over to my activities, let's see here. Go to one that kind of sent that out already. Here's that payment link email, and similar to that invoice that was automatically sent out, here's an email template for the payment links that we can configure. Again, that can automatically happen upon invoice release. And so this is what that email activity could look like that would get sent to the customer. So if I was a customer now, I could click on that link, and now it's bringing me to just a click to pay portal. So I could view any items that I have within that invoice. I could go ahead and pay it. There's two different payment methods on this side, so credit card or ACH. So I'll put in a credit card as the customer, and really this is allowing them to kind of self-service that payment versus you guys maybe having to take the credit card numbers over the phone, those types of things. So they can self-service this. I'll go ahead and pay it. We'll press done. And then if I go over into Acumatica, we can also, the syncing of this could be automated. So anytime they click that link and fill it out, make a payment, it would sync back into Acumatica. And you'll see once that process happened, it's automatically closing out that invoice and then creating that payment within Acumatica as well. So kind of allowing your customers to self-service some of that process, making your guys' lives a little bit easier, but something that a lot of customers are leveraging today as well. So I know that was a little bit high level, but wanted to give you guys a glimpse of just a little bit of the Acumatica functionality from a financial perspective. There's a lot more there, so definitely encourage you guys to reach out and we'd be happy to dive deeper in. But with that, I'll kind of pass it back over to Andrea and we'll do just a couple of wrap-up items.
All right. Okay, so I'll share my screen here and then we'll get into any questions that the team has or the attendees have. So really quick, just call to action. I have emails for myself and Kaylee in on the screen here. So really do sincerely invite you guys to email us if you have questions. Please reach out. Where we'll start with is kind of understanding what you're on today, what your goals are, and then really define what the next best steps are there. So typically what that looks like is a deeper discovery session, and then really aligning the next steps there with what your goals are, which can be very often a demonstration that's more tailored with your data and your use cases. All right. So with that, we'll kind of turn it over to any questions, and then we'll hopefully give you guys some time back here.
Yes, I was monitoring the question for this webinar. So the first question we got was, our staff is used to the old system. How do you handle training and adoption?
Yeah, and it is a big change because oftentimes ERP implementations are described as open heart surgery, right? And we know that you've been on your current system for a long time. So obviously it's certainly there starting with first some empathy, and then really making sure that we first curate and select the core team really well. So understand who on your team knows the process and what you guys need today. And also, are they open to learning new ways of doing it as well? So it starts with selecting the right core team. We really take a lot of time to train on your data and on your use cases. And so you're not training in a foreign environment. That can really help the adoption process. And the other thing is we have folks in Wisconsin, Minneapolis, and around the greater Midwest. It's also really helpful to have on-site training and workshops as well. So that's kind of how we approach that change adoption. Use your data, pick the right team, if possible, come in person because that can be really helpful too.
Awesome. Related to that, someone asked, how painful is the migration and how do we move 10+ years or more of data?
Yeah, so our team can certainly help with that. We know SL and GP databases really well. So we have pre-built scripts to pull that data. We can help you transform it and or kind of coach you through how to do that. And then as part of our implementation, we always load that data for you and show you how to tie it out. We have kind of tie out checklists to help make sure that the data that's coming over is brought over accurately. For those larger, more complex data sets, we have that enterprise grade kind of ETL help as well. So we can transform it in a tool like Microsoft Fabric or Matillion or even SQL to help preserve that transformation logic. So we can do a lot of the heavy lifting for that data conversion and then use your team to help validate and clean up the data as well.
Great, yeah. Another question is, can the new ERP handle all of our customizations and reports?
Yeah, so with Acumatica, if the native functionality doesn't meet what you're looking for, we can also do low code, no code. So that's not a customization, but you can change things like, like attributes on the screen very easily. You can change the statuses of, a purchase order or sales order, for example, very easily, all through the UI, not with the developer. And then also it has two report writer tools built into the product. So you can write your own financial reports and operational reports, like an AP aging or AR aging report, for example. And then if you really like reporting in Excel, there's a really nice add-on called Velixo. And what that does is it lets you do all of your robust financial reporting and statements in Excel. And then it has a very similar feature in that you can update it and pull new data from Acumatica and actually send it out in a PDF from Excel as well. So it has a distribution component there too.
Great. The last question I picked out related to prem and deployment options. We touched a little bit on this in the intro. So the question is, we've been told our on-prem ERP is safer because it's behind our firewall. Is that true?
Yeah, that can be a common misconception, right? So with on-prem ERP, what that means is that your IT team and only, your IT team is solely responsible for keeping all of those servers patched and updated. And then many of the breaches that we see today are actually happen inside the firewalls, often through like phishing. Someone clicks on a link that maybe they shouldn't have. With Acumatica, they host it via SaaS, via AWS. And it is, SOC compliant, has 24/7 security monitoring, real-time patching. So really what you're doing is having kind of an enterprise grade hosting rather than just in-house, which is a lot safer. All right. Anything else, Julia? Any other questions?
No, that was all.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. We invite you to reach out and ask any questions. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.